to major world events that have a lot of anomalies associated with them. Perhaps people that are interviewed that were involved with the event, you can never quite get a correct corroboration of a timeline of what happened. There seems to be a lot of disorientation. 9/11, again, is a perfect example of an event that a lot of people think may have occurred during one of these time shifts. So it's really nothing more than a collective experience of a distortion in time, rather than just one or two people who might have missing time or a time slip.
Okay. And as far as, no pun intended, the future of time travel, what does that sort of hold for, I guess, for you, for Larry, and for the entire research field? I mean, is it somewhere that we can actually take it in terms of, beyond theories and ideas? Is there going to be sort of a next step in terms of actually being able to, time travel to order, so to speak?
I don't know that in our lifetimes we will see a human being be able to get into a device. But then again, if you look at how technology has progressed, exponentially since 50 years ago, even 10 years ago, I'm not going to rule it out. And again, every day I see some kind of scientific story or study or journal come out saying, oh, look what we've done. This has always been thought to be theoretically impossible, and yet here we did it. And I think it's only a matter of time before we start sending things larger than a photon into the past or the future. Humans, maybe in our lifetime. I wouldn't rule it out, but I'm more inclined to think that that's a little further down the road for us.
Okay. But would it be fair to say, though, if time travel's feasible, and we're living in the past in somebody else's, somebody else in the future, we're in their past, if it's already been achieved, do you think there could be some merit to this theory, that at least some UFO encounters, could be actually us and using the whole alien motif as a camouflage, so to speak?
I absolutely think it's probably, it makes more sense that, any civilization that may come to visit us is coming from another time. And obviously one way ahead of ours, where technology has advanced to a point that we now just think of it as being magic. We can't even comprehend it. And I'm not, I'm just a writer. One of my favorite physicists, Michio Kaku, talks about the differences in the levels of advanced civilizations that could be out there visiting us. And, it's kind of mind-blowing, the difference between what he would consider a primitive advanced civilization, which might only be 100,000 years ahead of us. And again, they could be doing things that to us, it just looks like magic. So absolutely, I don't rule that out. I think it makes a lot of sense that if we are being visited, we're being visited by people or entities or beings or what have you from all along that landscape of time, past, present, and future.
Okay. And how do you think abductions could tie into this? And if so, do you have any sort of theories for why and how?
Well, I think everything can tie into time travel. If you think about abductions in terms of, again, who is doing the abducting? Let's take the government angle out of it, and let's assume that we are being visited by other beings or entities that really want to just study us, the way that we go to zoos and look at animals, or the way that we take creatures out of the wild and study them. It's absolutely feasible that they would be from different timelines. They'd want to see how our evolution is developing, in contrast or comparison to their own. And I do know that some of the abductees that I've talked to in the past have been shown images of the future or visions of the future. And so, again, I'm not going to rule anything out and say that people are having experiences that they're not, but there's definitely an element of time, being able to see into the future, or that we're being visited from even people from the past of another universe that looks very different from our own. Okay.
Do you think, all this kind of almost like makes your head spin. I was just wondering, do you think that if a civilization actually achieves this and does it regularly, is there a danger of them sort of losing their identity? Because they're constantly changing and meddling with things to where,
Yeah.
reality's being altered, and would they
Exactly.
kind of lose their moorings as a civilization? Or?
Oh, I think we would just go to town and go nuts because, I mean, human beings have no control over their behavior. And I think we see evidence of that every night when we turn on the news. I think between the people who are out to make profits off of time travel and those that are trying to use it for some type of, authority or control. But even as a human being, take us personally as people, do you think most people would stay and function in the present moment if they could be accessing the past and the future? I honestly think Stephen Hawking was onto something when he said we cannot ever time travel because it doesn't, it doesn't fit into the purpose of what we're trying to do, which is live in the present moment. I mean, I honestly think it would even be hard for me to stay in the present. We'd always be wanting to go back to the past and fixing and changing and doing that or going to see what the future holds. And I don't think society would be able to function. I honestly think there's a reason for the restrictions and limitations that we have. Maybe until we can evolve, mentally and emotionally and consciously to keep up with technical and physical evolution. But right now, I don't think we're anywhere near that.
Okay. And I guess, having written a book about all this, I mean, what has been the reaction to the book since it's come out?
It's been great. People have told us that they really appreciate the fact that we can take an awful lot of information and cram it into one book, for one low price, but also make the science as understandable as possible. Because, again, if we don't get it, nobody else is going to get it. We're not physicists. But I think also a lot of people really did not think about the ethical angle before. And we really kind of opened that door and made them question, would they go back or go into the future if they had the chance?
Okay. And bearing in mind that you and Larry have written a number of books together, I think was it 4 or 5 now, something like that?
We're on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're on number 7. We're getting ready to write number 7. Yeah.
All right, cool. And,
time goes quick, Nick.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly what is next on board for the two of you?
Well, in October, we will have the next book, which is called The Grid, Exploring the Hidden Infrastructure of Reality. That's coming out on Hampton Roads, which is a new publisher for us. And then we just signed on to do a book called Viral Mythology. And I swear I'm going to try to paraphrase the subtitle that Michael at New Age came up with. Because Michael, it's something like, exploring how ancients encoded and spread information. Well, anyway, the book is about how information in ancient times was often hidden, in art, myth, story, architecture, and how it was disseminated. Now today we have things that go viral on the internet, but how ancient cultures and ancient civilizations spread information, whether it was information they were supposed to be spreading or esoteric and occult and hidden information that had to be suppressed for various reasons.
Oh, wow, that'll be cool.
Yeah. The subtitle is long and I haven't memorized it yet. So that'll be out early next year. Okay,
cool. Well, I guess with that in mind, I've got to ask the question, is there anything you actually haven't written about?
Well, there is. I mean, there are things that I want to write about that are not considered paranormal or, metaphysical or cutting-edge science. But Larry and I are doing something new that we're ready to sort of put out there. And we are writing our first fiction series.
Oh, cool.
And it's going to be based on, it's a sort of factual fiction that is based on the grid, and it's called Grid Walkers.
Okay.
So it'll be an attempt for us to do kind of like what Dan Brown does and, Tom Clancy, where you're writing fiction and you're able to cloak actual research, actual facts and information and theories in a storyline. And we really wanted to do that because we wanted to be able to take some of the ideas further than we were able to in a nonfiction book.
Okay. All right. Well, I shall look forward to that. I'm sure everybody else will as well. And at this point, I'll just, for the listeners, if anybody's got any questions, please either send them through the live chat room, or you can call in on the toll-free number, which is 1-888-919-2355. That's 1-888-919-2355. And any questions you've got for Marie, whether about a time travel book or just general research, just feel free to ask, and then I can pass them on to Marie, and we can hopefully get them answered. And but in the meantime, Marie, we'll just we'll keep on talking while the questions are coming through. And one of the things I did want to bring up, because I know you're sort of like a book warehouse for us. You're just putting them out one after the other, so to speak. But one of them. I mean, one of the books of yours that I really enjoyed was Science. This one that sort of unifies all different aspects of the paranormal. Can you kind of talk about that? Because I think that's something that a lot of researchers find. They get into the subject and they're like, oh, I'm a ghost hunter. No, I'm a ufologist. I'm a cryptozoologist. Then they kind of find that certain aspects of these areas of research tend to cross over as if there's some connection, and you kind of skillfully covered that in the book. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that is hands down my absolute favorite book. It wasn't meant to be. I was not qualified to write it at the time. It just fell into place. It is my absolute favorite. That book opened so many doors for me, and to this day, I still get emails constantly from people saying, "I just read Science, and it completely changed the way I look at reality and the paranormal." I think it was a groundbreaking book, and I don't really take all credit for that because, what I loved at the time that I wrote it was I was finding all these connections between quantum and theoretical physics and the paranormal. And I kept wondering, why is nobody talking about this? And there were a couple of people, Dean Radin and Russell Targ, and there were physicists talking a little bit about it, but nobody was putting it into a mainstream book. And I had just signed with my agent, Lisa Hagen, who you know. And, she was all thrilled to be working with me. And she said, okay, well, what do you want to write first? And I said, I want to write about quantum physics and the paranormal. It was like, what? I had no platform. Nobody knew who I was at the time. And she just was really honest with me and said, I don't know if you're going to be able to pull this off. You're not a physicist. Nobody knows who you are. You've never been on TV or anything. This is, back when I was sort of in the background doing my thing. Well, I wrote the proposal and I said, no, this is what I want to do. And 3 months later, we had a deal with New Page Books. They took a huge risk on an unknown. And when the book came out, it just exploded. I was told at the time one of the biggest coast-to-coast shows ever was when I was on with George talking about Science.
Oh, wow.
It opened a million doors. I met Larry through Science because he read the book and it blew his mind, and he got a hold of me and said, we need to work together. It's just, I think back at how there were so many reasons why that book should not have been written by me, but it really led to every other book that came after. It was the foundation for just about everything that came after.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that book.
Right,
and by
cool.
the way, people, it's Science, P-S-I-E-N-C-E.
Yeah. All right, and another one. Can you tell the audience about 1111, the time prompt phenomenon? Because I'm sure a lot of people, and I know I've experienced this. I had like a week where 5 or 6 times in a week I happened to look at the clock, or when I was in the car or in the house, and it was 11:11, whether at night or day, and it was just random when I happened to look at it.
Right. Well, that, interestingly, was the first book that Larry and I wrote together after we had connected. We decided we were going to sort of